Did you get a new number?
All right, you are seated in the Pediatric Subcommittee of the GTAC. This is our Saturday, November 21st, 10:30 a.m. meeting. We are calling the meeting to order at 10:39. All right, as always, we start with roll call. I'm Charles Macias. Laura Friend, I know, is not with us today. Bonnie Hartstein. Bonnie, are you out in the audience? No. Charles Jakewith. Here. Justin Hensley. Diana Kraus. Yep. Julie Lewis.
Present.
Aaron Lincoln.
Present.
Sally Snow.
Here.
Sam Vance.
Here.
Vern Walker.
Here.
Wow. Okay. We have 3 recognitions, 3 people coming off the committee in November. The first is Bonnie Hartstein, who's not here, but we certainly recognize all of her contributions and thank her for that. The second is Justin Hensley. Very nice letter for Justin.
It practices. It'll get fixed in the spring, is what I'm told.
He did the same thing I did. Didn't realize he was going
This is
off.
my second less than 1 year term. Nobody knows exactly what's going on.
And so we had Laura, Bonnie, and Justin. Okay. So many thanks. And we move on to our liaison reports. So we start with Air Medical. Julie.
I don't have anything to report. I wasn't able to go to the Air Medical Committee meeting last session. I do know that the Air Medical Committee meets today at 4 o'clock.
Okay, so you'll keep us informed of any pediatric issues. I don't
Yes.
see any note of any outstanding pediatric issues on their part.
So.
Okay. EMS, Vern?
I was not able to attend the August meeting. However, I spent a few minutes with Dudley Waite, and he was telling me that they're going through and they're still cleaning up the language to make sure that it includes infant in the terminology, which were our recommendations last time. Other than that,
Sir?
there's nothing.
Yeah, just speak right into the microphone, please.
Okay, so what I was saying was I wasn't able to attend the August meeting, but I spent a few minutes with Dudley Waite, and he was telling me that they were going through and making sure that the language changes from our recommendations last time to include infant in the terminology all the way through where that exists, to make sure that it's in there.
And just for the record, you're making reference to Title 25 of the Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 157. Correct?
Yes, thank you. Other than that, there's not really anything pediatric specific that's being discussed there that isn't discussed here.
Okay, and we'll come back to the to Chapter 157 later in the agenda. Education, Charles, keeping in mind that you have an agenda item for paramedicine later in the agenda.
The Education Committee did not have anything specifically to deal with pediatrics, but we'll talk about the other part on the other deal.
Okay. Injury prevention, Diana Kraus.
Yes. So the Injury Prevention Committee met, they held a workday meeting in Fredericksburg, Texas, on October 31st. They reviewed the current data from the evaluation related to the document titled Hospital-Based Injury Prevention Components. They discussed and developed a work plan for the systematic review of injury prevention interventions project. They assigned tasks to committee members, outlined the brief plans for the State Injury Prevention Conference Summit, scheduled for May 3rd and 4th, 2016 in San Antonio. And next year's workday meeting schedule was discussed.
Okay, great, thank you. Medical Director, Sam.
So both of the issues the Medical Directors Committee discussed regarding pediatric items are on the agenda here in a little bit. I don't know if you want to talk about those now or wait till they come up on our agenda.
I would just mention what they are so that we understand their
So
cross-cutting.
basically, it's the pediatric transfer and transport guidelines, and then the community paramedic task force. So, like I said, those are both agenda items here. Happy to talk about them now if you'd like.
No, we'll push those to later in the agenda. However, question, since discussion today will inform their future meeting, your interactions with their future meeting, are you going to be available for the next medical directors meeting?
Yes, I'll be there
Okay.
tomorrow.
Perfect. Stroke, Aaron?
Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the last meeting. Briefly reviewed their committee chair's report, and there did not appear to be any pediatric-related items.
Okay. Pediatric-related items noted. Trauma systems, Sally?
Trauma Systems has concentrated very heavily on the revision of the rules. They've had several meetings, and there's been some webinars conducted to review rule changes. So that's kind of all there is to report on that. Nothing specific to pediatrics.
And
they meet tomorrow afternoon, so.
thank you. Justin, the RACs?
RAC chairs meeting, they discussed a lot about the neonatal rules and changing the terminology to neonatal and maternal, which has some relevance as my screen goes blank.
Oh, that's interesting, meaning specifically the addition of the word maternal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because maternal mortality was 3 times higher, so they want to make sure and emphasize that. And so they're going to, the rules went to the council in September, and they're going to phase this in like 250 sites apparently, because they can't do it all at once, was what they discussed.
Okay.
There were some budget things. They also spent a large amount of time on the rules update, 17 full chapters. They discussed that the NIMSI's version 3.3.4 registry was being updated, or was certified, but is undergoing some testing, and that they were all very happy that the topics course at Dell Children's was well attended, and that was it.
So can we revisit the NEMSIS issue when we get to the data and our EPI discussion? All right, and then disaster planning, Bonnie, no update. Item number
Dr. Macias?
Yes.
Excuse me. This GTAC's version of RAC chairs will be held on Monday at 1 p.m. here. So.
Monday at 1?
Yes. Wondering when that was going to be.
Perfect, thank you. Item number 2, update on child fatality review teams. Amy Bailey did not have a formal report to forward, essentially not any new movement in either placement of new representatives for the regions nor new report strategies. So hopefully we'll have something in Austin where she can present at our February meeting. In addition, in the next sort of subset of the agenda item, which is listed here as item number 2, discussion on child abuse initiative in Ohio. Just a precursor to our discussion in February that I think will be much more detailed, and that is a quality improvement collaborative headed by some of the Ohio children's hospitals that are directed at abuse and close head injury and identifying predictors, hopefully more sensitive screening. And we had 2 representatives, Dr. Marcy Donarama from Houston and Kelly Leiker, who attended that coalition meeting or collaborative meeting. Can you ask Kelly to present at the February meeting, and perhaps we can get her connected with Dr. Donarama, and both can give us their version. The other information related to that, and I don't see our chat representation, but the Children's Hospital Association of Texas is interested in partnering as well. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to understand how we push some of the translation of what we've learned from child abuse into action. So we'll see that update in February. Item number 3.
Real quick, Dr. Macias, just on the subject of child abuse, the 30th annual conference on The prevention of child abuse is January 25th and 26th, and that will be at the Weston Park Central here in Dallas.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The 30th Annual Conference on the Prevention of Child Abuse is January 25th and 26th, and it will be at the Weston Park Central here in Dallas.
Just want to make sure I get this into the meeting minutes. Okay, thank you. If there aren't any other issues related to child abuse or maltreatment, we'll move on to item number 3, which is an update on the National Pediatric Readiness Project to include National ENA, Emergency Nurse Association Demonstration Project meeting. Sally?
The EMSC and ENA partnered to hold a meeting of the 5 pilot states who were selected to participate in a state champion pilot project over the next year. Those states are Louisiana, Illinois, Indiana, Pennsylvania, and Colorado. There were ENA representatives and EMSC state managers at that meeting, along with representatives from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American College of Emergency Physicians to talk about developing state champion teams to help improve pediatric readiness in emergency departments. That meeting went very well. There was a lot of enthusiasm for the state champion teams. ASAP plans to, or at least preliminarily, they plan to come up with a deliverable. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, whether it's a poster or a booklet or whatever, to talk about the state champion teams so that it can be co-branded by ENA, AAP, ASAP, and EMSC to help educate states after the pilot to develop those state champion teams, because one of the things that we know from all of the research that's ever been done is that it's the champion for pediatrics in a hospital that makes the most difference. You can have all the equipment you need, but if you don't have a champion, the preparedness doesn't really move in the right direction.
Sally, can you elaborate on the extent of supporting the champ? Is it training a trainer, essentially?
Yeah, it's just to establish a resource and multidisciplinary resource at the state level to go perhaps into hospitals where the pediatric readiness score is identified as low, where people need resources in terms of, staff competencies and getting equipment. Sam had a story yesterday about neonatal ambu bags and how he'd been able to hand some out, and that was, one of the things that state champion group might be able to do. I can't elaborate a lot on what those state champion teams will look like, because that's part of this pilot project, is development of the job descriptions for each of those partners. The anticipated group will include the core partners, ENA, AAP, ASAP, and EMSC, but we know in different states there'll be people invited to the table that represent EMS, that represent rural health. In states where Indian health and tribal health is a big part of their state, they'll be invited to the table. Certainly a family representative will be included, and this pilot project is to kind of flesh out how those state teams will look from those particular 5 very different states. Illinois is our mentor state, because they are so far advanced from an EMS perspective in terms of facility recognition and outcome studies and things like that. So they're going to be there as a mentor state for the other groups, and we hope to have a steering committee that will kind of oversee each state's progress. The plan is to have our states conduct a conference call, if not a webinar, monthly to talk about their progress, and then to report to the national level steering committee, which will include representation from ENA, AAP, ASAP, and EMSC on their progress, so that by the end of the year we have a fairly well laid out plan that we can then hand to the other how many other states are there, 45? Some territories included?
Something like that.
My math's horrible. So that we can hand them job descriptions and lessons learned and that deliverable, so that they can go back home and make those state champion groups happen in their state. I anticipate that Texas is going to go ahead and move forward with this. We already have a pretty well-established advisory council for the EMSC, and in many states, that may not be the group that's put together. They may not have a lot of representation from ASAP or AAP or ENA on those advisory councils at this point. But one of the things that we want this pilot project to do is to demonstrate how important those core groups are to improving pediatric readiness in the emergency department.
So did the outreach occur through the state partnerships initially to identify the 5 pilots?
Yes, they put out an application process at the federal program, and all of the states that wanted to participate filled out an application and sent it in, and it was a group of participants from EMSC and ENA that chose the 5 states.
And when do you see on a timeline the next opportunity that Texas might be involved?
Well, officially not till the end of the pilot project, but we haven't ever waited till the end of that before, so why wouldn't we just go right on and start up now? So, yeah, at the end of the year officially, but I don't see us waiting till that happens. We've always had a very strong relationship in Texas between ENA, EMSC, AAP. We haven't had ASAP participation as much as we maybe would like to, but that's an opportunity for us to reach out to ASAP and get them on board now.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. I would imagine that the state partnership would be keeping this on the radar.
We are. We actually did apply to be a part of the pilot program. My guess would be that we weren't chosen because we do have a lot of the resources available to us that Sally had mentioned that some of the other states that were chosen for the pilot program don't have available to them as far as their relationships are concerned with ENA, AAP, and ASAP.
And the pilot states are very diverse. I mean, you have Louisiana on one hand that really didn't have a program at all until the 2013 assessment, when the ENA state president got involved, and who is now the EMSC manager. So the states are very diverse and have very unique problems.
Okay, thank you. If there aren't any other comments on the NPRP activities.
Well, actually, there is.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
So, yeah, as far as the National Pediatric Readiness Project is concerned, I think majority of you are familiar with that in 2013 and 14, we did a nationwide assessment of all of our hospitals to see how PEDS ready we are. Here in Texas, we surveyed 504 hospitals, had a participation rate of 305 for a percentage response rate of about 60%. So the National Resource Center and the National EMS for Children Data Analysis Resource Center has chosen to reopen the Pediatric Readiness Portal. So if you are a hospital that would like to redo your assessment, you can go online to www.pedsready.org. It is the same exact format as it was when you originally did it. If you had previously done it, it will give you a comparison score of your previous score to the one that you're currently filling out. And then for those hospitals who did not participate the first time around, they have the opportunity to do that now. The portal opened on November 1st, and it will be open for about 10 months, I believe. So.
Okay. Anything else on NPRP?
Oh, did you say about the portal being reopened, Sam?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I was
Yeah.
talking to Justin.
No, that's all right.
Not minding my
That's
business.
what sidebarring.
That's all right.
That's what happens.
All right, so good. We've got some action items with that then. On item number 4, update on pediatric facility recognition program. Sam?
I guess that's me too, huh? So as far as the facility recognition program is concerned, we have been speaking with the leadership of TTAF to collaborate with us on that. As they currently do.
Do you want to give the entire group a reminder of what the program is about?
Sure. So the facility recognition program, what that is basically it's very similar to what a trauma survey is or stroke and STEMI recognition. It would basically be recognizing all of our emergency departments throughout the state to have the capabilities to take care of kids. There are 14 states throughout the country that currently have pediatric facility recognition programs. Many of them use the terminology of emergency departments accessible to pediatrics. And as I stated, that is basically making sure that all of our emergency departments have the capabilities to take care of kids and have the ability and the education to recognize that they are either able to hold on to that child and treat them, or they need to be transferred to a higher level of care. So since TTAF does our level 3 and 4 trauma center assessments and are going to be doing the new perinatal assessments, we thought it would just make sense to collaborate with them on this to do the pediatric facility assessments. We have been speaking with their leadership, and I think that they are all on board with this, and they are. We have put together a teleconference with them, and the program manager from Arizona, Tommy St. Mars, and with Evelyn Lyons from Illinois. They both have very different programs. Evelyn's program in Illinois is probably one of the better established programs in the country and has been around for many, many years. Arizona has a newer program and is a little bit different model where they collaborate with the AAP in their state. But we did a teleconference with them and with the leadership from TTAF, and I know that TTAF has a board meeting tonight, and I believe Lori is going to talk about that at their meeting tonight. And unless you all from TTAF have anything to add to that. All righty, thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Just a reminder that the process itself is a voluntary process, but there have been some suggestions of links to reductions in mortality and morbidity where it's occurred. So it certainly has value, and the nice thing is that it ties in very nicely with the NPRP, National Pediatric Readiness Project.
It does. The states that do have these recognition programs in place, those that have gone through the recognition program have higher PEDS ready scores than those who have not participated. And Illinois has been around and doing this long enough that they have been able to collect data and present that data. And those hospitals that are recognized as emergency departments accessible to pediatrics do have better numbers as far as morbidity and mortality rates are concerned, opposed to those who have not gone through the process.
And part of the reason for bringing up the outcomes is that as we move forward with evolving the NPRP, evolving the recognition program, identifying what data that we really need and in what format we do from the trauma report, we really want to get all of these three aligned so that they are aligned with the trauma registry. So, but we'll have more discussion on that. All right, item number 5, EMS for Children State Partnership Update. Sam?
So the biggie there is the new EMSC Innovations and Improvement Center. And Dr. Macias, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. So for 16 years, the EMSC's assets, which are the SPROC grants, regionalization grants, targeted issues grants for general innovations research, PCARN, pre-hospital and hospital-based research, plus all its pre-hospital and hospital-based activities, not the research world, but the translation to all of that has occurred through the state partnerships, but coordinated through the National Resource Center. HRSA has taken a very, as the umbrella organization for emergency medical services for children, has taken a very innovative push to look from structural measurement and passive dissemination of tools for coordination to very active quality improvement, pushing agendas for both process and outcomes measures. It's an interesting and very large, big step. Two parts to that is one for coordinating centers, and the second is for a series of coins. One of them that may be familiar to many, since Texas participates in this particular coin, collaborative, is the infant mortality coin. The concept behind all of that is that you can accelerate uptake of knowledge to better outcomes through the integration of improvement science. And so this very large step of saying after 16 years of existing as a passive coordinating center, HRSA has put out a grant proposal for converting the National Resource Center model into an EMSC Innovations and Improvement Center driven solely by quality improvement methodologies. So that push is really intended to shift their outcomes from what for many years has been structural measures that things exist to process measures and a reduction in mortality and morbidity. So it's a whole new way that the federal government is looking at outcomes-based activities and endorsing those activities. And that's the description of the EIC.
Thank you. Yeah, so Baylor College of Medicine is applying for this grant, and if we were to receive this grant here in Texas, it would be huge as far as helping put us on the national scale, not only with pediatrics, but just in general with the amount of federal and national organizations that EMSC is involved with. So to kind of go along with that, as we renew our state partnership grant application next year, they are developing new performance measures for these states to try and achieve. So they will be kind of sunsetting performance measures 71, 72, and 73, which has to do with online and offline medical control and our pediatric equipment. So 71 and 72 will be replaced with focusing on having a pediatric care coordinator for EMS, similar to what we're looking at on the hospital side of things as far as having a pediatric care coordinator in our emergency departments. Then, as I said, they're going to kind of sunset the one on the equipment because from our recent assessments, we know that the majority of our services have the majority of the recommended pediatric equipment. So now they're going to want to find out if we actually know how to use the equipment. Not sure how we're going to do that just yet, but that performance measure will be to see if we can actually figure out if we know how to use the equipment. Then the last performance measure that's going to be updated is to make sure that we are all NMSIS compliant and to promote the use of NMSIS and entering our pediatric EMS data into NMSIS. And to go along with that, they are planning to do another nationwide assessment of our EMS agencies in 2017. As Sally mentioned a little bit ago, that back in October, I had the opportunity to go and visit with RAC-K and RAC-D and speak with their RACs about their PEDS Ready data for their regions. But while I was there, I also took with me some neonatal AMBU bags that I had available from my predecessor. I had bought some because our EMS assessment and our hospital assessment has shown that one of the big things that a lot of folks don't carry are the neonatal AMBU bags. So it was interesting to find out that in the western portions of those RACs is where a lot of the oil fields are. And out on the oil fields, the ladies who are pregnant are not necessarily getting prenatal care because they're anywhere between 80 and 150 miles away from the nearest OBGYN, or a lot of them are undocumented, so they don't want to go seek the prenatal care because of that. Bless you. As a result, EMS agencies are running more calls for OB emergencies and for prenatal care. So actually I was able to hand out 72 neonatal ambu bags. 53 of these were to EMS agencies, and I gave away 19 to the hospital emergency departments. And the one agency was extremely appreciative. They're a volunteer fire department that is 100% volunteer, gets all their money from things like chili dinners and that type of thing. About 2 or 3 weeks prior to me visiting, they had used their only neonatal ambu bag on a 28-weeker that they had delivered. So it's just this is an area of concern, actually. I mean, it is a public health issue. I'm not sure how or what we could do to help address that, but it is an issue. Then to kind of go along with the facility recognition, you all have heard me talk about the EMS recognition program, which briefly just recognizes our ambulance services for going above and beyond what is required by the state. They will be recognized for carrying recommended pediatric equipment, having things such as evidence-based guidelines, online, offline medical control, be recognized for doing pediatric continuing education and doing pediatric community outreach activities. We had planned on piloting the program up in Rack A in the Amarillo area. We were hoping to do that around this time of the year, but our funding kind of fell through on the decals that we'll be handing out that agencies can put on their trucks. However, we have been able to come up with some funding that's going to allow us to kick this program off after the first of the year. So myself and State EMS Director Joe Schmieder will be traveling up to Amarillo after the first of the year to kick that off. Let's see. Talk about that after a while. Then in April, on April 20th, we are going to be doing a pediatric conference in conjunction with RAC D, the Big Country RAC, up at Hendrick Medical Center in Abilene. And then we are also now accepting nominations for the 2016 EMS for Children Crew of the Year Award. We'll be accepting those up through March 31st. You can get more information on that by visiting our booth in the exhibit hall during the EMS conference. And then finally, the last thing I want to tell you about is that we have recently been joined by Dr. Ramsey Tate. She will be the EMS for Children State Partnership's new Associate Director. She will be learning Dr. Shaw's role and over the next year, and will eventually move into the role of the Program Director. So, and that's all I have. Unless you all have any questions.
One note of integration, systems integration here. Ramsey Tate, Dr. Tate is also will also be joining the PEDS committee along with 2 other new representatives beginning in February. So that'll be some nice integration. Okay, let's move to item number 6, if there are no questions for Sam, which is review the current Department of State Health Services EMS and Trauma Systems rules published in Title 25 of the Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 157. Just an update that this was a meeting that we held in early October, I believe, in Austin, and went over the rules with a fine-tooth comb, but just wanted to, because we didn't have a large audience, we had an audience of 1 there, we wanted to make certain that there were no public questions. The specific rules, I'm going to start by saying we were very pleased that our prior recommendations had been integrated into most of what we saw. So that was very nice to see that language in there. So that meant for 157.5, 3, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, 33, 34, 36, 37, 39, 40, 43, and 44, we offered no recommendations. For point 2, minor corrections in the alignment of the verbiage, and we will send that. It was more of a question than it was a specific language. But the two that were more critical to us were .38 and .32, in which we specifically wanted to include in two strategic locations the language adult plus pediatric, parentheses, including neonatal. So it'll be interesting, Justin, to see how that integrates with maternal as well, since that's really the full spectrum and important. And much of that was related to integration to educational initiatives, curricula, et cetera. So we will send that.
Good, okay.
Okay. That takes us to item number 7, update on Texas consideration for pediatric consultation and transfer guidelines, next steps in discussion on the role of the regional advisory councils and member hospitals. So this was really our knowledge translation. We've created, you've done a phenomenal job working with many people to create these recommendations. Next steps.
So, as you all know, the guideline was vetted through all of the subcommittees that had a reason to look at it, and a consensus was reached, and we have finalized the guideline, and it was presented to GTAC last time. Sam took it, and with the understanding that there would be some minor language tweaks, it was approved. So what we need to do now is disseminate that, and it seems that the best way to do that is through the RAC system. So it should go to the RAC chairs, and if there is in existence a pediatric committee chair at the RAC level, it should go there. We would like for it to be sent to every hospital. Because every hospital in the state and even EMS agency needs to see it, so that they have knowledge of it and the opportunity to follow it. It is a voluntary system created to give hospitals and EMS agencies guidance on what pediatric patients should be transferred to a higher level of care, including the method of transfer. And it does relate to medical pediatric emergencies and trauma emergencies, so it is comprehensive. So I would ask how what do we need to do to make that happen? Is it just enough to ask the RAC chairs to take on that responsibility, or could this committee direct the Department of Health or DSHS to disseminate?
Is that a big GTAC resolution?
So we could do this a few ways. You could come to the meeting on Monday at 1 and discuss the issue before them, or we could put it on the RAC chair's agenda for February.
What do you think?
Or Monday.
I can't be there on Monday, but you could. What does the committee think?
I think if you could do it on Monday, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
rather than waiting
I think so as well, yeah.
since we've been doing
And a third alternative would just be an open email to all RAC chairs too. So,
With an attachment?
sure. And we can potentially
What about
post a
all
document
hospitals?
on the page.
As far as the hospitals are concerned, I can send it out over the PEDS Ready listserv that I have, which will reach about 400 some odd hospitals.
Well, it's not too bad.
Not too bad, not too bad. Also, I was at a State Office of Rural Health Advisory Committee meeting this past week, and folks from Texas Hospital Association and Texas EMS, not Texas EMS, Texas A&M, that's what I was trying to say, Texas A&M, they're a Rural and Community Health Institute. They have, they're going to help us disseminate that out to the critical access hospitals.
Awesome.
So I want to make sure I got the action items clear. So I think the one nice thing about sending the open email that you don't get in the in-person meeting is that in in-person meetings you feel rushed without the ability to reference the document that you're looking at and really expressing your concerns. So I'm wondering if that's really a better strategy to go through the open email. So we can at least do that piece of it. I heard disseminations to the hospitals through to Peds Ready Hospital lists.
Yeah.
Through state partnership.
So didn't we have 504 hospitals that were assessed?
We did, but I only have information for about 400 and some odd. I don't remember the exact number.
Would there be any value, Dr. Macias, in putting it on the GTAC agenda? Well, can't go on the GTAC agenda, or what, on the RAC Chairs agenda, just so it goes in the record, in the minutes?
Yeah, I think so. I think actually physically putting it, because we've got several action items with this, so I think actually putting it on the agenda for February as well.
Yeah,
Plus,
and
that'll give them an opportunity to review the
Yes.
open email, make any comments, send those back to us, and we can be prepared with responses that address whatever issues they may have.
And as a side note, that the February meeting is a mandatory RAC chair attendance.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
you'll probably reach
So-
more folks then, too. So.
Pizza ready, but- Okay, so one other thought, Sally, is when we talk about the hospitals, it's a passive infrastructure without necessarily engaging the champion. I'm wondering if maybe professional societies, chat, TPS, reaching out to champions so that we have some actionable items by those organizations might be a strategy as well.
Absolutely.
All right,
think
so
The more we can get it to, the better.
why don't we go with TPS? Let's go through Dr. Kasny. Sam, can you communicate that?
Sure.
And then for Children's Hospital Association, I will reach out to
Brian
Sperry. Any other professional societies that we would envision?
Texas ASAP.
Texas, TSEP, okay.
It's April, annual meetings in April, but the board is meeting in January.
Oh, I take that as volunteerism there.
That's what we were sidebarring about a while
Yeah, that was
ago.
our sidebar comment, yeah. I'll do what I can, since I'm technically not on the committee.
Yet.
But you never stop being a champion for children. All right.
Just the board needs.
And Texas ENA. And I'll take care of that one.
CMA. All right, so we've got a long list of checkoffs for our February meeting.
Oh,
So
and
this
there
is
is
good.
also THA, Texas Hospital
Oh,
Association.
yeah.
And then Texas Hospital Association.
What about TMA?
That'll be interesting.
Yeah, I
Um,
thought so.
ENA and TMA, we'll have to put out feelers to see who our liaisons for those are. Okay.
I'm the chair of the TMA EMS and Trauma Committee.
You what?
I'm the chair of the TMA EMS and Trauma Committee.
Oh, good, Justin.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. You're now
Okay,
on
and
the
finally,
checkoff
Dr.
list.
Macias, just one last thing. I really want to thank the work team that worked on the guideline. Dr. Kate Remick was very helpful, Sam Vance, Dr. Mitch Morber, Julie Lewis, Christine Reeves from the Waco RAC, Justin Boyd from up in the Amarillo area, and Debbie Boudreau from Cook Children's transport team. A very helpful group, very hardworking, and I really am proud of the product we were able to turn out.
It's really spectacular work. It looked great. All right. Any questions for Sally before we move on? All right, so that takes us to item number 8, trauma registry update, pediatric data, epidemiology, all things analytic.
Good morning. I'm Dan Dow from the Injury Epidemiology Surveillance Branch, and I took
I'm
over.
sorry, can you spell your last name?
Dow, D-A-O. I took over for Chris Strucker in the Injury Epidemiology Surveillance Branch at Department of State Health Services. And I recently replaced him. I'm originally from Kansas, which, if you're wondering, is 1/10 the size of Texas. And I'm quickly realizing it's a really big state. The update we have data-wise is our data was closed at the end of July, and that allowed us to work on our reports. And the two reports we're currently working on are a pediatric final report, which is currently underway and should be ready by next GTAC, and pediatric facilities versus non-pediatric facilities, which is also going to be ready for the next GTAC. And then I can take any other questions if you have about the...
So in both those reports, we had gone through about 2 or 3 iterations in which we had recommended changes that had been adopted. So I'm assuming that the reports that we will see will take the face of the final revised version. Is that correct?
These are based on the recommendations made to us.
And I'm sorry, that would be in February that we will see that?
Correct. In February of 2016, these reports will be ready.
So is it possible for us to have that to review before the meeting and then have the opportunity to discuss and view that on slides?
I think so. I think so.
I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yes. That's a soft yes. If that makes
We'll
sense.
make it a hard yes.
A hard yes.
And
Okay.
if you want, we can get together in Austin and just kind of go over it to make
Perfect,
sure
yeah.
that all those changes were done.
Yeah, your input's going to be critical for
Yeah.
what you want to see in it and how you want it to be used. It's probably more important than what we report. So I would think of it in that way. Also, the other update we had was in September of this year, we were able to get our NEMSA certification. So XML uploads are currently available through the system. We had a little bit of an issue in the beginning, but it's been corrected. So all uploads via XML are now working to the NEMSA system.
And that's a data that, I'm sorry, what was the date that you said that?
September of this year.
Of this year. If that was, had you already met?
Nope, just
Okay. So,
meet after this.
so the construct of our group, we had identified that we would have a liaison to put all things analytics, and Diana Kress very graciously volunteered to take that role.
Voluntold.
Okay.
Affectionate.
Questions? Nope.
Well, thank you.
So Dan and his group have been really great in providing the state on our end, EMS and trauma, with great data. We have out in the hall two posters of EMS and trauma data that's based on information they've provided, and Dr. Young there too. So I just want to say thank you to them. Thank you.
Thank you. It did look really good. One thing I would just say for upcoming agendas is that we want to see, we'd love to see more and more integration with the National Pediatric Readiness Project metrics, and try to understand how some of the regionalization discussions that we're having will help us to integrate this data to make it actionable. So that'll be an important underpinning in the next year's requests.
So just one last request on that data piece. If you folks could take a look at that data out there in the hall and tell me what's missing there. If there's anything you'd like to see next year, please.
Pediatric subsets of it?
Yes, please. Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you. This takes us to item number 9, review and discuss scope and best practices for pediatric paramedicine. So we had to start a follow-up of discussions. Sam, I believe that was in medical directors?
It was. So the Medical Directors Committee, Dr. Sharon Malone has developed a task force in conjunction with the Education Committee to take a look at educational requirements for community paramedicine or advanced practice paramedics. I know they've had at least one meeting on that. I was not, 2 that I wasn't able to attend. I think Charles may have been able to go to at least one of them. Which I'll let Charles talk about. And I do know that with that task force, Dr. Malone asked Dr. Kate Remick to to participate in those talks as well to help represent the pediatric portion. But I'll let Charles talk about those meetings that they've had.
They had 2 meetings. Both of them were down at Williamson County EMS offices. First meeting was well attended by all 3 groups that were on the task force, the medical directors, education, and EMS section. That was just a base group trying to get a feel of what we were looking for and how we wanted to do it. The second meeting was not as well attended because some of our docs were in the process of trying to get ready for their testing. So we were a few people short for that meeting. We're going to plan to have another meeting in January. Hopefully by the February meeting for GTAC, they will have a base of where they're looking at going and trying to work on a bottom floor minimum requirements for that particular, the community paramedicine.
So how much of the discussion on community paramedicine has referenced best practices in the pediatric world?
At both meetings, the pediatrics were covered, talking about the especially like for the asthma out of
Targeted issues. Is it targeted issues grant? Right?
There is a targeted issues grant out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Yeah. The what's the name of it? Treat the Streets program.
It's I think always interesting to be sitting at Advantage where you've had and seen the evolution of and transformation of medicine, and to recognize that we're seeing that as well as more urgent care centers take on more of the children in urgent and emergent care settings, as we look at alternative models for mid-level practitioners, for community paramedicine. I think that all of that requires an understanding of the systems work. So I say that because this won't go away, and I hope that this will become a bigger and bigger agenda item in the years to come. My term ends in November, but I can assure you that February through November we'll have that agenda item. So please bring your best practices. We really want to provide unified support to the Medical Directors Committee in a tangible way to say these are our recommendations for what we can integrate. And I think that's more than one person. That's really all of us bringing our best suggestions forward. So the charge then for this group is to identify a few things in scope for community paramedicine to discuss in our February meeting so that we can continue to inform our liaisons to go back. So I'm going to put that as a charge to all members for best practices.
Lori Benson, I'm from Children's Medical Center in Dallas. I think I had told this group before, so we have started with the community paramedic program in Dallas, working with Dallas Fire and Rescue. I don't know if Dr. Isaacs was at this meeting you're speaking of, or our Chief SEALs from Dallas Fire and Rescue. But we are working with the asthma patient population. We've developed a curriculum for those paramedics that are going to be seeing those children in the community paramedicine program, working with our pediatricians at Children's, and then working with Dr. Isaacs, and we've developed an algorithm and a pathway for them. So we're happy to engage with this group so we can share what we're doing. We'll also be doing it with our campus up in Plano, with Plano EMS as well. They'll be rolled out next, but we've developed a curriculum where they're coming in for orientation at Children's, having classroom setting as well as in our emergency department and our inpatient side with asthma educators. So we're happy to share that, but we're already doing this in Dallas.
If you could send, and I'll give you a card, if you could email me some of that content, we'll disseminate it here. We'll post it on our agenda for the February meeting.
Okay.
So that we can review specific content and get a better sense of what that looks like. One question, what organization is, and what is the umbrella group that funds this activity?
So right now, there is no funding for it. So currently, Dallas is doing this as just the initiative that they want to do. That piece will hopefully come later, but there's not funding linked to it currently.
Okay. And the link to, you said that, is this the Children's Health System that?
Yes.
Okay.
So our name's changed. That's one thing that we need you to correct on your document, Sally. So we're Children's Health, Children's Medical Center Dallas, Children's Medical Center Plano.
Okay.
Children's Medical Center Plano?
Mhm.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
does this fall under your population health initiatives?
It's part of population health and also my program, which is the Pediatric Emergency Services Network, which does all of our EMS education. So it's a combination of both groups.
Laura, are you going to be at the Medical Directors Committee meeting by chance?
That's today, right?
That's tomorrow,
Tomorrow? Yes.
tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
Okay. I think it would be great if you could let them know when they get to that portion of their agenda, just to let them know about the work that you're doing. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, the big thing is talking with Dr. Isaacs and then Chief Seals.
Sure. Okay.
Okay? All right.
Thanks. Work that's being done on the national level with mobile integrated health, as I'm sure you're aware, on the adult side of the house, it's really been taken off here recently. And so, you know, everything starts on the adult side and kind of trickles down to the pediatric side. And that's no different with mobile integrated health or community paramedicine. Bless you. The Pediatric Emergency Care Council of the National Association of State EMS Officials, at our yearly meeting of about a month or so ago, we met with the Mobile Integrated Health Committee of NASIMSO, and that committee has asked the Pediatric Emergency Care Committee to develop guidelines for mobile integrated health care on a national level, and they are making that part of their deliverable. So at the national level, the pediatric portion of this is starting to come together. But in addition to the Targeted Issues Grant in Indiana, what Lori is doing in Dallas, there are several other of these programs being developed around the country that are pediatric specific. One that was presented to us at the NASIMSO meeting was actually out of a little place called Cranberry Township in Pennsylvania. And no, Joe didn't have anything to do with this. But anyway, they are working with their local pediatricians and their SIDS Foundation to do home visits for expectant mothers and their families. And so what they're doing is they're actually going and teaching them infant and child CPR, teaching them how to use AEDs. They're doing a home safety check. They're doing safe sleep education. They're installing their car seats and doing that type of thing. So, you know, there's all sorts of possibilities for pediatrics to be involved with some type of community paramedicine program. So.
Do we know whether the medical directors have an intent to create a position paper, a white paper, recommendations, something more formal?
I think that's what they're looking at doing.
Well, we certainly could help contribute to some of that content. Okay, great. Well, we have our charges for that topic. That takes us to item number 10, which was Jory's request. Review the Hartford Consensus 3 report as it relates to empowering the public to serve as first responders in international mass casualty and active shooter events. Very timely given the events in Paris. Has everyone had the opportunity to review that? Well, I think the bottom line is, I'll leave it open first for comment, and then we can move to what we want to do with that. So thoughts?
I don't want to be the only one talking.
You know, to me, I think it just, you know, it makes sense that we, you know, work towards and provide education out to the public to help them understand, you know, those immediate actions that can be made to save lives. And, having gone through, the tornado out in Granbury a couple of years ago, I mean, some of those actions are, they truly are life-saving. And the more people we have educated outside of the normal realm of what we consider first responders, I think the better we're going to be. So I totally agree with their initiative and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and for anybody in the crowd that wasn't here for the last 10 minutes of the disaster, they're obviously kind of spearheading this as well. The previous committee that was right in here, and so I think we wouldn't have to do anything on our own. We can kind of join in with those guys, and they mentioned putting them in with AEDs and things like that. So the tourniquets in with AEDs, so that there's disaster preparedness and teaching as well.
Well, I think with education being such a critical part of that, we certainly have ability to offer what's pediatric specific.
Dory Klein had just asked me to make a statement here. So one of the things she's doing to look at this initiative for the hospital professionals, the ATCN and topic course instructors across the state are having a meeting today to talk about that and talk about the curriculum and how we can maybe tap into that group of instructors that exist already for the healthcare professionals in the hospital setting. So she wanted to make sure that I gave that update.
So in that sort of three-layered immediate responders,
Right.
professional responders, trauma professionals,
Right.
that would address the two
Yes.
professional and trauma
Correct.
professionals. Okay.
Okay.
Helpful.
So this is all part of the Stop the Bleed campaign, which is a national campaign that I believe was developed by FEMA in response to the bombings that happened in Boston. And to my knowledge, PHTLS, or pre-hospital trauma life support, and advanced trauma life support through the NAEMT and the physician group that they're associated with, I can't draw a blank on. Anyway, I believe they are actually developing a curriculum for PHTLS instructors to teach to the general public. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. So I think from what I'm hearing, we certainly support any initiatives and any of the educational endeavors would offer our support for an expertise for anything pediatric related as well. But it sounds like we're allowing others to take the lead and will support disaster as well as the initiatives that Jory had described. Any other issues related to that Hartford Consensus 3 report? That's our last agenda item. All right, so I think at this juncture, any announcements, any general public comment? I have to say I was going by my clock, so it looks like we had more time than I had looked at, so we did well for time. All right, well, that being said,
Well, if you want to keep talking, we can talk.
Well, just real quick, if you want to put it in the minutes. So the TMA winter meeting is January 30th and 31st, and the TSEP board meets in conjunction with that, and I'll send you an email, but I'll take EMS for C, MPRP, and the other.
I'm sorry, you said the TMA meeting meets when?
January 30th and 31st in Austin. And the TSEP, Texas College of Emergency Physicians, meets at the same time. And so I'll take the transfer guidelines and the EMS for C National Pediatric Readiness Program information that you wanted us to take to those two groups at that time.
Perfect, thank you. All right, with no further comments then, we are done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Mine says